What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today, because you guys smashed that like button on the Invoked Ryu profile way above 50 likes in the first 24 hours, I thought I'd bring you a test and combo video to show you exactly how the deck operates. So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to do a couple of test stands going first and a couple going second to show you how the engines synergize together, what you can kind of produce from like 1 or 2 power play cards, and what happens when you have access to the engines. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. After a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, our opening hand of 5 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is, within fairness, the dream reality. And what I mean by that, or the ideal scenario, is you've got your 2 1-card starters. You've got the Mustafa, which is going to get you down your Rui engine. You've got your Alistair, which is going to get down your Invoked engine. And then everything else from that point on just becomes additional plays. Now, ideally, you'd want these to be hand traps, but you can still make your plays with what you have here. We're just going to go through the basic line here. Now, you need to make sure in this particular version that you do the Alistair play first, as if you do go down the Mustafa route first, yes, of course, you could bait out some form of interaction, but when you get to the field spell, you do end up locking yourself into only being able to use dragons, or special summon dragons, sea serpents, worms, and dinos. So you do need to be a little bit careful. So with that being said, we're going to normal summon Alistair the Invoker. We're going to use the effect to search out the invocation. Yes, of course, there are a couple of different choke points at this particular position, but if Alistair was to get ashed, obviously they always fear the fact that you might have already hard opened up an invocation, and even if so, you still have the ability of getting the access through off of the back of the Rui. You still have the ability to get a Varudras, a one-sided Macrocosmo, and then of course off the back of that as well, you can also start setting yourself up with other link plays and everything else in between. So we're going to grab the invocation. Obviously at this exact moment in time, we do want to start building up some different attributes. So because we've opened up with the base level, we're going to be able to go into an Almirage, and we're going to put Almirage in the graveyard to get into a secure Gardener, and then of course we'll activate the invocation, we'll banish the Alistair from the graveyard, we'll banish the secure Gardener from the field, and this will give us direct access to the Macabre. Now keeping in mind we still have these 3 in our hand that our opponent doesn't know what they are, so at this moment in time we can negate a monster or a spell, but we're going to guarantee that we can negate a monster by being able to go, cool, Alistair's effect, put this back into the hand, put the invocation back into the deck. We're now clear and protected from stuff like Ash Blossom, which is probably the biggest fear off of the back of your Rui. Yes, of course, you are in a bit of a downside if your opponent does play Draw and Lockbird, but that's going to be one of the cards you need to be aware of and keep an eye out for in the upcoming format. So we're now going to activate the Mustafa into the Pendulum Scale. We're going to use the effect to grab us the field spell, wherever it may be. And it is a one-off, so bear with me. There we go. So we're going to grab the War Zone. We're going to destroy the Mustafa, which goes to the face-up extra deck. You're then going to activate the War Zone. Now that you've summoned out your machine, you don't worry about being locked into those particular dragons, sea serpents, and everything else in between. Now keep in mind, you can discard this card to add a Rui sea spiral from the deck to the hand. But the issue is you can't get it back into the deck. So there are different ways of being able to play this. But the idea is when you're activating the War Zone, you're going to add yourself, you're going to send, and you're going to banish. So you're going to send to the, you're going to banish the water, you're going to send the worm, and you're going to add the dino. Now, you don't really need to worry about adding the dino for the pure fact that you've already got the realms. And the only reason you need the dino in the hand is to search you out the realms. So you could technically do it in any order you wanted to. You're going to get all 3 of them to the board anyway. You're just kind of giving yourself more monsters in the hand. And keeping in mind with this one, the one additional benefit you're going to get by adding this and not having to put it back into the deck is during the main phase, if 2 or more cards were destroyed this turn, which will happen, you will be able to summon this card down. So again, you'll be in a pretty decent position. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use the second effect to the War Zone. So you're going to summon the Worm from the graveyard. You're going to summon the Sea Serpent from the Banish Zone. And then, of course, you'll summon the Dino from the deck. Now, your opponent doesn't know you have these, so just keep that in mind. You could very easily add a Protoss as well if you wanted to instead. Rather than sending the... if I added the Protoss... yeah, so rather than sending this, what if we sent the Dino? It won't be as aggressive, but this does give you a bit of a swing to go other ways, actually. So we'll add the Protoss instead. We'll still summon back the Dino, and then from the deck, you'll summon out the Worm. So you've still got everything you need to, and you don't need to use the Kaiva effect to destroy on the board to spin back, which is the only downside, because you do kind of want to destroy a card as well. But you can get that off the back of Protoss. So there are ways to kind of do this. So you're going to activate the domain. The domain gives the ability, you can use the effect of the Kaiva. So you get to put the Dino domain back into the deck, and then you destroy cards up to a number of different monster types. So at the moment you've got 4 different monster types. So if you wanted to, you could do that. Now it is on the field, so being a little bit more aggressive, that's kind of cool as well. So we'll put the domain back. And the reason we want to destroy something is so that we can trigger off the Mistava. So we'll destroy the worm. Yeah, we'll destroy the worm, which will allow us to trigger the Mistava. Mistava will then allow us to destroy the Sea Serpent, which will bring this out into the extra monster zone. We'll then use the effect of this. We'll destroy the War Zone. You don't need to rely on that too much. You can destroy this if you want to get 2, but because you've got the discard of the Sea Serpent, you don't need to worry about that. So the one you're going to want to go for is you're going to want to go for the Worm, because that's going to give you the Macro Cosmo one-sided option. Just double check what we've got in the graveyard at the moment. I mean, we've got plenty of attributes for that. So if we can get this banished off of Protoss as well, we can trigger this. This card needs to already be banished, which is the biggest annoyance of it, but I digress. Have we sent 2? We've sent 1, because we sent a Worm from deck to grave, didn't we? So it's always remembering, like, all these different effects. If 2 or more monsters were sent from the hand and or deck to the graveyard this turn, except itself, which is fine, because we actually sent, the Dino. So if you wanted to, you could actually activate Alistair now to buff this, and that'll let you bring back another level 10. And the reason you'd do that is it means you would maintain a bit more interruption. Let me just try and figure out how we'd want to do this. So we've got that off of that. I can then discard this, which is fine, because then this will give us the water. So this will give us the spiral. Now obviously that won't trigger the Cairo, because it has to be accept itself, but we sent 1 from the deck off of the back of the field spell, and if you discard Alistair, I don't believe we've discarded anything else. So if you discard Alistair, you buff this. Now the only reason you're going to do that is so that you can trigger to bring this back. And in doing so, what you've now got is you've got the ability to overlay both of these. You can now get into a Varudras. And then by doing so, what you've done is you've left this on the board. By leaving this on the board, this now gets both the additional effects off of this. So you have a quick effect during your opponent's turn to reduce one of their monsters to 0 by putting this back to the bottom of the deck. You then also have the ability to put this back to the bottom of the deck, and then you get to target a card on the field and return it to the hand. So you've got those 2 forms of interruption. The only downside by doing that is it means that we've discarded the only monster. And by discarding the only monster we have in the hand, the Protoss then becomes slightly redundant. So you can kind of hold on to Protoss as a follow-up, or with Super Poly use it as a discard. Alternatively, if you don't want to do any of that and you don't want to bring back, you don't want to give this both the effects, you would just overlay both into a Varudras, or you'd leave it like this. Where are you? This would definitely stay on the board. This would go back into the deck. This would, yeah, you'd have this in the hand. You'd still discard this. You'd still get this. And then what you do, because obviously when you put Varudras on the board, you put a Dark on the board. So the other alternative is you go, cool, banish, wind, wind, water, fire. Banish all 3 of those. Summon down Protoss. Protoss effect called Dark. And obviously you've got 2 lights and an earth, so you don't actually lose your own effects. But you stop your opponent summoning Darks. You set the Super Poly. And then obviously you've got the Alistair in the hand for the negate off of the back of the Macabre. Or of course you've got the ability to activate Super Poly if you want to. Honestly, I'd probably hold back the Super Poly and just have a spell negate in the hand and a monster effect negate in the hand. And that would mean if they've opened up a Lightning Storm, I can protect from that. In theory as well, you could also put these in defenses, so you don't need to worry about that so much. But what you now have, if you leave your board like this, is you've got a one-sided Macro Cosmo, you've got a bounce, and you've got a reduction to 0. You've got a monster or a spell negate, and your opponent can't summon Darks. Obviously, neither can you, but you're not going to be summoning Darks during your opponent's turn, unless you're going to set that Super Poly, and then obviously you need to be a little bit worried because you won't be able to make Mud Dragon or Garura. So keep all of that in mind if you do go down the Protoss route. But what I'm trying to show you here is there's a couple of different lines you could have taken. You could have taken, if you knew what they were playing, Protoss, lock them out of Darks. If you didn't know what they were playing, you hold this back and you basically end up on a Varudras anyway. So you get the Omni Negate and then you leave both the additional effects on the Mistava as well. So that's it for the first test stand. This does variate depending on what you get. Now, this isn't the best version in my opinion. It's just one of them versions that if you liked Invoked and you want to kind of give it a modernized update, this is the way you kind of want to do it without breaking the bank as well. The downside is, and it's pretty much the same with any Invoked deck though, is if you don't see access to Alistar with your, 3 copies of Alistar plus 3 Meltdown, so you're 7 ways to get to Alistar, plus 8 if you include Pot of Prosperity. If you don't see direct access to any of that, then you're basically just going Rui Turbo. But then the chances are, if you haven't seen any access to your Invoked engine that way, if you've bricked brutally, which isn't nice, or you've opened up loads of hand traps, so those hand traps should be able to get you through, especially when you're sitting on like a one-sided macro with a Varudras, or a one-sided macro with a bounce and a attack reduction. So you kind of get the benefit of everything you need there. So we're now going to shuffle up. We'll go again. We'll go first again. That was only like 10 minutes. So we'll go first and then we'll go second. I think like going first is this ideal scenario. Going second is when you start, you don't need to overlay as much. You get your aggressors on the board, and then of course you work your way through into Purgatrio, and Purgatrio leads into the OTK. So after a decent shuffle and a good old cut, our opening hand, our 5 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well the Terraforming unlocks our Alistar route, but obviously you've got the Rui Rising as well, which is going to unlock our full Rui engine, and you've hard open up the Protoss, so you're still in a very good position. So draw phase, activate the Rising, which means you play around Droll and Lockbird a little bit, not perfectly, because obviously in the Invoked version, Droll and Lockbird is going to be a giant pain in the backside, but that's just something you need to be aware of, whether you go for stuff like Crossout Designator, or whether you go for something along the lines of like trying to focus on stopping it. That's your other option. So you've resolved the Rising, you move into your main phase. Again, you're still going to want to go Terraforming, and you always want to do, this is the biggest difference, is in the Sword Soul version, you don't care about the lock. In the Voiceless Voice one, you probably do a little bit, but nothing major. Whereas in this particular version, you need to make sure you don't go down the Alistar route first. So you go Meltdown, and this is why Droll's such a big issue, is because like Terraforming search this out, hit you with Droll, you're like, blah. But that is the risk and reward of playing this version. Normal Alistar, go burr and grab us a Invocation. Wherever it may be, grab an Invocation. Again, you do the exact same play, because unfortunately, you don't ever really want to banish your own hand traps. If you go in second, that's when you start using your opponent's graveyard. So you turn this into Almirage into Secure Gardener, Invocation, Macabre, Gardener, and Alistar. Alistar effect comes back to the hand, Invocation goes back to the deck. There we go. So you've set up your protection here, and you've guaranteed that you're protected from Ash because you've got the Alistar in the hand. So you're going to activate the Mastava, do the exact same thing here, destroy this, get you the field spell. Now this is where it gets a little bit different, because you've already hard opened up the Dino, you've already hard opened up the Protoss, but this is where the Dino becomes like the better extender with everything you do. So you replace the Meltdown with the Field Zone, and then what we can do here is you can actually shuffle this into the deck. Let's grab us the Continuous Spell card. We're a step ahead of the game. We're going to be adding 1 anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. It just means that we're now going to be able to get a Effect Negate, a Bounce, and a Macrocosmo. So activate the War Zone, add the Dino, send the, obviously banish the water, sorry, and send the wind. This like pretty much the exact same play you want to be doing now. And with Protoss, with Protoss we should be able to do a little bit more as well. Activate the second effect, so summon, and summon. And then activate the Dino Domain, activate this, spin this back, destroy. So we've sent 1 to the graveyard. Destroy the water this time, doesn't make much of a difference. Effect to this, tribute this, summon this out. I mean, you can get rid of the Dino if you want to, it doesn't make much of a difference, but the idea is, and I say tribute, it's destroy, because it's actually very important that you destroy this. Summon of this, destroy this. Let me just double check. No, it is tribute. It's destroy on this one, it's tribute on this one. So we destroy War Zone, so we've definitely destroyed 2 now, because obviously the Kyver destroyed 1 and the Mastava's destroyed 1. You're going to get the Macrocosmo. And the reason that that's important is that we can now use the Kyver effect to summon itself down, because 2 or more have been destroyed this turn. You get special in it from the hand. You can place the Dino Domain on the bottom, but we've already done that. And then what you can do here is you can overlay both of these. Gives you the Varudras. And again, this is the downside of something like a Protoss, is as soon as you summon out Protoss, if you call Dart, you lose your own Varudras. So you do need to be very careful. When you're choosing Varudras, you're choosing one or the other. So it is very important that you kind of need to make that option known. If you want to do it. If you don't want to do Protoss, and again, this is just, if you do want to do Protoss, then what I'd actually say is when you're destroying off the Mastava, because you're going to get the wins, you would keep this one alive, and you'd actually destroy it. So this would stay in the hand. You'd destroy this. You'd still be able to summon this down, but the benefit of doing something like that is now both of these have the added effect of the worm wins. So that's the benefit you're going to get. You can also keep this in the hand as well. You don't need to summon it, and it just gives you that additional monster or discard because of that super poly. Then you'd still go for the Protoss. The Protoss would definitely still have enough because you've got an earth there, you've got a water there, and you've got the fire there. So that's the other benefit of playing the Alistair engine, is you're pretty much setting all of that up to go. Protoss can then call Darks, you're locking your opponent out of Darks. You've got this with an attack reduction, this with an attack reduction, plus the Macro Cosmo, plus a monster negate at this exact moment in time. Set the Super Poly, still gives them more issues. If you're worried about a spell, you hold the Super Poly back in your hand. So again, it's kind of showing you different options. Protoss or Varudras, you decide. That's kind of where the flex comes into it. The benefit of being able to main something like a Protoss is if you do hard open it, going second, you know exactly what your opponent's playing. So you can just summon down the Protoss, and at the base minimum, just calling a Dark on your opponent causes so many issues because it's a card that you won't lose. You just won't be able to go into Varudras, and you're locking your opponent entire out. So against the EU Bell matchup, Protoss is like board wipe and then lock. So yeah, very, very important. So now shuffle up, what we'll do is we'll start going second, so I'll show you the aggression of this one. We'll start using the hypotheticals that our opponent has the attributes in the graveyard that we need for the Alistair, which basically just gives you options to go into something like an SP Little Knight a little bit more or work around in different ways. So after another decent shuffle and another decent cut, our opening hand of 6 this time will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is a weird hand. Where are all my bloody hand traps? Do the exact same thing on this one. Draw phase, the Ruri. Give you your Mastava. Goes into graveyard. We still got a terraforming. I'll do a power shuffle next, I guess. Grabs the Magical Meltdown. Activate the Magical Meltdown. Grab you Alistair. I mean, I'm just going to speed through this a little bit more. This Dino is going to go back into the deck because you've opened up both. You don't ever really want to be seeing both in your hand. You'll grab the Dino Domain. You'll normal summon Alistair. Now, obviously, we want to go second, but it depends if you want to protect or not. Again, if you want to go second, you just go into Almirage. You'd still do the exact same place. You'd go Almirage, turn Almirage into Secure Gardener. But when you activate Invocation, rather than going into Macabre for defense, you'd actually end up going into Purgatrio for aggressing, because that will just like clear all your opponent's cards off the board. And this is where you're going to get a little bit more benefit as well. I'll show you this way. I've already shown you how you get protection. So if you're worried about protection, you go Macabre. Invocation goes back to the deck. Alistair comes back to the hand. The one benefit you're going to get on this one is you're actually going to want to use Alistair's effect, which gives you access to the water one when you get it back to the graveyard. So activate the Mastava, destroy the Mastava. Now, obviously, we're not going to add the field spell now. But we get to add any Rui card. So, I mean, I've got one banished. Do I want the Hakva or do I want the Emva? I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference. I can add anything I want, really. But you'd go Emva, discard this, grab you the Water Continuous. It can't be destroyed by battle, so I suppose that's the better one. Keep in mind the additional effects don't come into play until your opponent's turn, so you can't do anything with them right now anyway. Warzone for Meltdown. Warzone's effect, add. So we'll add Protoss as the worm. We'll send Dino, and we'll banish Sea Serpent. Second effect of the Warzone. Summon back Dino from the grave. Water from banished. Wind from deck. I would still use the Kyver effect, but the difference is you don't need to destroy your opponent, your stuff, I don't believe. Let me just double check this one. So, you can special summon this card from hand. You can place a Dino Domain you control on the bottom of the deck, then target other cards on the field up to a number of different monster types on the field and destroy them. Yeah, so I'd go, cool. Activate Dino Domain, and then During the main phase, if 2 or more cards were destroyed this turn, so it doesn't even need to be your cards, which is pretty mental. I can now activate Kyver's effect. We'll put the domains back to the bottom of the deck. But I now have a Cyverse, a Worm, C7 Dino, and Fiend. So I can destroy up to 5 of my opponent's cards. I'm not going to destroy all of my opponent's cards, but I am going to destroy the Enver, because in doing so, that will then allow me to trigger the Mistava. Oh no, Secure Gardener locks out the extra deck. I forgot about you. I mean, that's not a big issue. I just don't destroy that. I just destroy all my opponent's stuff. And then we've still got Alistar. Have I still got Water in the grave? Yeah, I still do. So I can still go Alistar to buff Purgatrio. And then because 2 have been sent, so we sent the Dino from the deck off of the Fields spell, and we sent Alistar as well. We can then summon back a second Water. Let me just double check these aren't like you can only control 1. I'm pretty sure they're not, but you can special on this card from a graveyard, place a Sea Spies you control on the bottom of the deck, banish your opponent's entire hand, draw the same cards, which, I mean, I've got the Sea Spiral, so I could rip my opponent's entire hand apart, but I don't really want to give them a fresh hand. As this now currently stands, we are worm locked, but not a big issue, because what we can do here is let's overlay. I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference what we overlay. Varudras. I can still trigger during the battle phase. This is where it's going to be quite interesting with Varudras, actually. I'll show you how you can destroy your own stuff. I could very easily Protoss as well if I wanted to. I just need to get more materials into the graveyard. So we'll go battle phase. So then what we do is, with Varudras, keeping in mind that your Mistava will trigger at any time a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect. Doesn't need to be yours, doesn't need to be your opponent's. You can do anything. So what you can do is you'd probably usually attack with Purgatrio, so you just go like attack, and that's your game. But with this, you probably want this now to be Macabre, which would banish the Gardener. But anyway, we'll carry on through this. What I'm trying to show you is, what Varudras can do is Varudras can trigger the summon of this during the battle phase. Even though you're killing your opponent's stuff by battle anyway, as long as you kill the first thing, so you go Hakvar attacks, and then you can also use Varudras when it attacks to destroy one of your own cards. But the idea is Hakvar attack, destroy one of your opponent's cards, trigger, let's just accept during the damage step. If you're destroyed by battle or card effect. No, it says by battle or card effect. So destroy, kill your opponent card by battle, effect to Mistava, tribute this off, summon this out. Effect to this, if I want to, I can destroy these or whatever to get me some more continuous, but that's just to guarantee you. Like, if you can't complete the OTK, you'd do that. Other than that, you've got a 35 going in there, 3k going in there, 1k there, 3k there. Like, you've guaranteed an OTK. Everything I just did there was like over the top. Like Purgatrio, more times than not, would probably get the job done. And then when you just go to the point where you use the field spell to summon out all 3, that should pretty much be game there anyway, because that's 9k damage on the board. So, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do a final shuffle up, going second as well. So you've seen 2 going first and 2 going second. Probably get about half an hour video out of this as well for you guys. So I try not to make them too long, because I feel that if you go too long on videos, it kind of drags a little bit, and you just basically want to see how the deck can operate. I kind of want to see going second, if you don't see access to the Invoked engine, it's not the end of the world, as long as you've been able to slow your opponent down and you still have access. Like, you want access to one or the other. Like, Invoked can OTK on its own, within reason, and then the Rui's can OTK on their own as well, within reason. So I feel like going second, you've definitely got a very good option. Okay, so going second, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, very decent hand. Ash definitely got used. Exact same route of play, I guess. Meltdown, grab you Alistar. Not that you need it too much, but usually your opponent will always, like, I say usually, most of the time back in the day, people would Ash this and you'd be like, okay, cool, normal summon Alistar anyway, and they'd be like, oh yeah, of course. And then they would imperm that and you go, okay, cool, I've already got Invocation anyway. So that is the life of a Alistar Go Burr player, I'm afraid. Okay, so exact same route of play. Like, this never changes. Almirage, Gardener, or shouldn't very rarely change. Cool, Invocation, Banish. I can leave the Secure Gardener on the board if I want to, but we saw that caused an issue last time. So I'm just going to go Macabre now, this route. Obviously, I can OTK, because I can just go Purgatrio and that'll do the job for me, but at least with the Macabre, I can protect a little bit. Invocation goes back to the deck. Alistar comes back to the hand, double protected. Kyver goes back to the deck. Grab me the Dino Domain, wherever it may be. Dino Domain. Scale the Mastava, destroy the Mastava, get the field spell. There we go. Activate Warzone. Warzone's effect. I mean, I've got nothing in rotation. I don't need the Dino because I already hard open up the Dino. So I can send the Dino. I can add the Worm. And I can banish the Sea Serpent. And there we go. Second effect, summon the Dino from grave, Sea Serpent from banish, and the Worm from the deck. That's your aggression on the board already. And that's before you activate Domain. That's before you can activate Winds. Any monster sent from the field to the grave during your opponent's turn is banished. That's the first effect of this one. So this one's quite irrelevant. That's the one you don't really want to hard open. But the Dino Domain, Rui monsters you control gain 300 attacks. So each of these are now 3/3 as a base. And you still obviously have the ability to use this to spin it back into the deck. To destroy cards on the field up to 4 because you've got Machine, Dino, Sea Serpent and Worm. Let's say this is where you don't even need to worry about using the effect to destroy your own stuff because you just go battle phase. And you just go, cool, battle phase, attack, destroy my opponent's monster by battle, Mastava, destroy this, summon into the extra monster zone. Oh yeah, I did that wrong on the previous test hand, apologies, I should have destroyed the Secure Gardener. Summon this out, affected this if I want it to, but the idea is you probably want to attack twice first, and then summon this, you can go, cool, destroy this, destroy the, no, actually, don't destroy that, destroy this. That would then give you access to, I don't know, let's go for the domains again, at least everything then get a nice little buff. Also you need to, no, we destroyed the water, and then this one, let me just double check what happens when this one puts one back. Special on this place who wins the bottom of the deck, add a Rui card. I mean, I don't really need to add a Rui card, but at this exact moment in time, we'll see we attacked, you'd probably go attack once, attack twice, on the destruction of this one, effect to this, summons back, destroying this, effect to this, destroy the field spell, destroy this if you want to. That would then get all 3 of these into rotation. You'd then attack for 35, 3k, and then if you really, really need to, Macabre, drop 2 Alistairs, clear the game off, and then that gets you your job done. If you do need to protect a little bit early on, you could always overlay both of these into Varudras. Kind of gives you an idea of where you're going for it. But that is pretty much it. It kind of shows you what happens if you open up one of the pieces already. Like the only one you don't want to open up is the Worm, but even then if you do open up the Worm, you can still banish it, and that's why you play 2 copies of the Worm, 2 copies of the Sea Serpent, and 2 of the Dino. You could arguably in this version cut the Worm down to 1 because you're already playing Protoss, and that kind of fits in the other position of the Worm. I do like a very techie, funny idea is you could actually play a UCT because you could just search out a UCT. And then if you get 2 dinos to the graveyard, whether that be through Reaperdonkus in the extra deck or whether that be through the main deck dino on this one, you banish 2 dinos and just summon down a UCT. But you start going down the avenue of very gimmicky in comparison to what else it could be. Anyway, that's it for the entire test stand video. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. I'll try and follow this up with a Sword Soul version as well if you guys want to be seeing it. And then after that, we'll work our way into dinos and just kind of show off all of the different variations and versions you can play around with, because I do feel that this engine is just absolutely insane and I love its addition to all of these decks, as I keep saying over and over again. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.